Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Disincentive. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Monday, September 30th, the final day of September in the year 2024. Disincentive, as in, we have got a very unique, extraordinarily unique situation going on in Major League Baseball. Today was supposed to be a quiet day, a day for press conferences prior to the wild card series opening tomorrow. But no, Hurricane Helene and total disorganization and mismanagement has caused a doubleheader to be played in Atlanta today. And it's not game 163. Those were done, passed over. It's game 61, 161, and 162 for the Mets and the Braves. There were so few scenarios, as a matter of fact, one that would land with a guaranteed doubleheader today. And that scenario happened when the Braves lost to the Twins yesterday, but the Diamondbacks beat the Padres and the Mets beat the Brewers. So the Mets beat the Brewers, got on a plane, came back to Atlanta when they didn't want to do that. In theory, there was a scenario in which they would just stay at the Pfister for the next week. So maybe they needed a break from Milwaukee, but who would want that? They go back to Atlanta, where they have to play 2 games no matter what today, starting at 1:10 p.m. Then they get on a plane immediately and go either to Milwaukee or San Diego or New York. So let me go through the scenarios and let me talk about what's happening right now inside the front offices of both clubs. This is a fascinating puzzle for a team to figure out. And I don't mean the logistics, because God bless the traveling secretaries for these two teams, both the Mets and the Braves. So here it is. You've got the Braves, Mets, Diamondbacks. 3 to make 2. Somebody's not going to play tomorrow, but 2 of those 3 will. Game 1, Mets at Braves. If the Mets win, they're in. If the Braves win, they're in. Then let's go to game 2. If the winner of game 1 wins game 2, stay with me, then the Diamondbacks are in. If the winner of game 1 loses game 2, then the game 2 winner is in. So put very simply, as happens 80% of the time, roughly, anecdotally, if it's a split doubleheader, the Braves and Mets both get in. If it's a sweep, the team which sweeps gets in, OVS, and the Diamondbacks get in. And the loser of the sweep is done for the year. So let's pretend that the Braves win game 1. They've got Chris Sale ready to go game 2. They're not pitching him, because if they win game 1, they're in. So Chris Sale doesn't pitch in game 2, and Chris Sale is available to pitch tomorrow in game 1. If the Mets win game 1, they're in. Why would they pitch Severino in game 2 when they're saving him, pretending Severino is as good as Sale? He's New York's version of Chris Sale. They're going with Tyler McGill in game 1, try to get a win. And if you win, you save Severino, pitch him in game 1 of the wild card series tomorrow. Do you see where I'm going with this? If you win game 1, why are you even playing game 2? because players need a rhythm? No, they don't want to play both sides of a doubleheader going into a playoff series with 0 games rest, 0 days rest. If you win game 1, why would you use anyone but your long relief people? Or better yet, do you make a roster move? With a doubleheader, you get an extra roster spot. If you're the Diamondbacks, you're realizing that a split is way, way more likely than even normal because the winner of game 1 doesn't want to play game 2. If I am the president of the winning team of game 1, I'm going to the clubhouse and saying very simply, here's our lineup. Samson, Coca, Sleepy, Drowsy, and Droopy, and Dreamy. I am reviewing the position player pitching rules because there are rules as to when a position player can pitch. I am going through with my general manager what our playoff roster is because playoff rosters will be set by playoff teams, Braves, Diamondbacks, Mets after the games today. And I am pitching in relief a bullpen arm who I'm leaving off the wild card roster. So I'm analyzing the matchups. If I'm the Diamondbacks, I'm analyzing matchup versus the Brewers. That's the only team they can play. If I'm the Mets, I'm analyzing Padres, Brewers. If I'm the Braves, I'm analyzing Padres because if they win, they're playing the Padres. Although in theory, they could play the Brewers. If they split, that means they're tied and the season series goes to the Mets, in which case the Mets play the Padres and the Braves play the Brewers. Interesting. So I got to analyze both matchups, figure out which pitchers I want on my roster, and then find a pitcher to pitch in game 2. Major League Baseball has thought about what to do about incentivizing a team in game 2 and realizing there's nothing they can do. In spring training, there's rules about which players have to play, how many quote-unquote regulars have to travel to away games, even though we totally manipulate that and pretend that we're sending regulars because a guy got 40 at-bats. But regular players don't like making long spring training trips. So if you look at lineups in spring training, very rarely do the regulars go on the road. They'd rather stay home, certainly for the first 2 weeks of games. But there's no such allowance for the regular season. There have been examples in the past where one team is incentivized to lose. There are people who would think that the Padres would have been incentivized to lose yesterday to have the Diamondbacks win to help create a doubleheader, to help create the Padres playing against a team that's played twice the day before, 3 straight games in a wild card series. When there are examples where there is clear disincentive for one team or another, you will hear from baseball's central operations department, making sure the integrity of the game is always at the forefront. But we would sit in the manager's office and we would talk through what we wanted to do in a particular game, what the ramifications were, using your analytics department, using your scouting department. Remember, each team has had people scouting possible playoff opponents throughout September. There are books already created on matchups of every pitcher versus every hitter and every hitter versus every pitcher between your team and every playoff team. So the bottom line is this. What should be the most exciting day of baseball will only be an exciting first game of baseball unless you live in Arizona. Because think about this. If you're a Mets fan, you're thinking the worst. You're thinking you're going to go to Atlanta, you're going to get swept, and you're going to miss the playoffs. You've got to win game 1. No, you don't. I tried to calm down Scott Riley with CBS, but he would not be calmed because he is a hardened Mets fan. If you lose to the Braves in game 1, you're not seeing Chris Sale in game 2. If you beat the Braves in game 1, it doesn't matter that you're seeing Chris Sale in game 2. So the panic that you feel is not warranted because neither team who wins game 1 will be interested in winning game 2. Because I'm not the president anymore, and Jeffrey Lurie is not the owner anymore. When you have a disdain or contempt for a team, and I didn't, I love Fred and Jeff and the Mets and the Wilpons. We just wanted to beat them all the time because our owner really, really needed us to beat the Mets at all times. So if we had a chance to knock the Mets out of the playoffs by sweeping a doubleheader, even though we were playing a playoff game the next day, we would make sure that we worked to sweep the Mets and get them out of the playoffs. You require a visceral hatred toward the other team in game 2 to play your guys or pitch anyone who's on your playoff roster. Visceral hatred. I don't think it exists between Liberty Media and Steve Cohn. Now, would MLB like Steve Cohn to miss the playoffs? Secretly, maybe yes, but in terms of ratings, no. Having the Mets in there is good for business. We'll see how it all plays out at 110. Meanwhile, the Dodgers are waiting in the wings. The Yankees are waiting in the wings, knowing that they're not playing for the next 3 days. They are now going through this period where upsets happen because teams lose their rhythm. This is the time of year when if you're the top 2 seeds, you're the Dodgers, you're the Phillies, you are the Yankees. Having a moment here, Coca. I'm very tired. I am totally blanking right now on the number 2 seed. And the Guardians, thank you. Thank you, Coca. This is when you try to play simulated games. You try to pump in crowd noise. You try to not just take BP in the cage. You get out on the field. You do infield practice. You do whatever you can to protect the fact that you've earned these 3 days off. Baseball players do not like 3 days off, neither do front offices. The Dodgers under Dave Roberts, it's really incredible. They have the best record in baseball for the 3rd time in the past 5 years. Now, granted, their payroll is extraordinarily high, and they're one of 3 teams who'd be in position to have the best record in baseball for the 3rd time in 5 years. But you got to go out there and do it. And they did. I was happy that the Dodgers played Ohtani yesterday as Ohtani tried to win the Triple Crown. He didn't. He fell short. As Ohtani tried to get his 60th stolen base, he didn't. He fell short. As he tried to hit his 55th home run, he didn't. He fell short. As he tried to get his 131st RBI, he didn't. God, does he stink. He only hit 54 home runs, stole 59 bases, had 130 runs batted in, and hit 310 with an OPS over 1,000. What a horrific season. If I'm Shohei Ohtani, I am despondent, overwhelmed with sadness for not earning my money, yet super excited to have a playoff at-bat in just a few days. I was thinking to myself, would I take Ohtani's season or Aaron Judge's season? And the answer is I'm taking Aaron Judge over Ohtani because Aaron Judge played the field and Ohtani did not pitch. And I will give you this mea culpa right now. When I told you Aaron Judge could never beat his 2022 season when he hit 62 home runs, signed the free agent deal, I said, way to go, Yankees. You bought at the top. Well, his season this year was better under every metric. Forget the fact that he hit 4 fewer home runs. He hit 322 with 58 homers and 144 RBI, a final OPS of 1159. Those are your MVPs, ladies and gentlemen. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, they no longer are competing with each other. They are both winning your MVP. And Ohtani could have had the Triple Crown, but he didn't win the batting title. I think we should change the definition of the Triple Crown now because no one gives a flying rat's pituitary gland about batting average. And Triple Crown is batting average, home runs, and RBI. Analytics departments don't care about runs batted in, but I do. Everyone cares about home runs, and no one analytics or not, cares about batting average. Congratulations, Arise with the Padres is getting a ton of attention. Remember, he was traded by the Marlins to the Padres early, like May of this year. 2 years ago, he won the batting title with the Twins. Last year, he won the batting title with the Marlins. And this year, he won the batting title with the Padres. That's 3 years in a row, 3 different teams. And guess what? In terms of value, I would non-tender him. He has no place to play defense. His on-base percentage as a leadoff hitter is mediocre with occasional doses of crappiness. He definitely hits to contact and doesn't strike out. But in today's game, we don't devalue the strikeout anymore, which we probably should, but we don't. We don't care about batting average. We probably should, but we don't. What does this mean to me? It means when Marlins fans are upset that Peter Bendex traded Arias, they just don't understand that in today's day and age, he doesn't have the value. If you want to look at WAR, Arias' WAR was 1. 1. What is the value of a guy with 1? $6 million? It's funny. There was a theory that was proffered by baseball people that I wanted to talk to you about. How many millions does it cost to buy a victory? They would try to go to the owner and say, we won 88 games. We got to get to 91 to be a playoff team. We're 3 wins away. Wins are about $4 million each, so we've got to raise the payroll by $12 million. Well, wait a minute. What about the natural raises of the people who gave us the 88 wins this year? What do we do about that? Don't worry about it. We're building a team for 91 wins. Is that 91 WAR? Well, no, it's 91 wins. When you're putting your payroll together and you're looking at a leadoff hitter who hits for average but doesn't add much else to your team, what is the benefit of having him on your team? I can't think of any. Doesn't matter if he's a good clubhouse guy. Doesn't matter if he's consistent, plays every day. There's nothing more emblematic of his uselessness than the fact that no team wants to keep him. So Terry Schilt, the manager of the Padres, of course, they're going into the playoffs. He says, I don't know. Arias is not going to get a chance to win 4 batting titles in 4 years with 4 teams because we're keeping him. You sure? Just want to make sure that you're in lockstep with AJ Preller as you allocate your payroll if you don't get a huge influx of revenue from the postseason. Just want to make sure that you are allocating, that you are keeping Arias at what his raise will be. Just checking. Of course, you're not going to say anything to the contrary. Not when you're about to play a playoff game. Injuries are such a part of baseball. They're such a part of sports. We've always talked about injuries. That's been going on for decades. It just seems to me that every year is a new storyline of a new injury that changes the course of a team's season, except somehow the team finds a way to get through it, get over it. All we talked about during the season was all the injuries to the Braves. Acuna gone, Strider gone. Meanwhile, they're a split away from making the playoffs. Dodgers, they lost more pitchers than most teams have. They have the best record in baseball. Yesterday in football, the Kansas City Chiefs had a very weird injury. I don't think we have tape of it because we're not quite up to the level of subscribers required to be a licensee of NFL game content. But hang in there. May happen one of these years. So the Chiefs win, but on some bizarre play where Mahomes throws an interception, then needs to tackle the guy who intercepted the ball, you've got Rice, the wide receiver, also involved in the play, and somehow Mahomes rolls him up and ends up injuring their star wide receiver. And not like a little injury, like EOS injury. End of season. That's just when you're watching as president of that team, you're just despondent. Now in football, you're used to and fine with concussions and rolled ankles and, something that happens as part of the game. It just happens. But when it's your own guy, even though that's part of the risk going in during the course of a season, or a play or a game, when it happens, it's like when in baseball, when guys are going for a pop-up and they run into each other and one of your guys gets hurt and misses 6 to 8 weeks. You feel like it's a self-inflicted injury, even though it's just dumb bad luck. So the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to three-peat. They've lost their starting running back, their best wide receiver. They lost Hollywood Brown, another wide receiver. And you know what? I'd like to know, Coca, what did their odds of winning the Super Bowl move to with Rice's injury? Do you happen to have that in front of you by chance? Did they go down from yesterday morning to this morning? Their Super Bowl odds because of this huge injury that is like the number one story ever? I don't think they should. With Mahomes, with football, you just play. Think the Giants couldn't win with Hostetler? Come on. There is one team, though, that I think the odds should go down after watching yesterday. All right. I know this is so bad, Coca, that we're doing this twice in one show, but there's a thing in New York, and I don't quite get it. It's sort of a geography thing, but you're either Yankees, Giants, Rangers, or Mets, Jets, Islanders. That's sort of been a thing all through my childhood. I actually don't know. I should ask Sarah if that's still a thing these days, where if you like the Knicks, then you like the Giants, and then you like the Yankees. If you like the Nets, you like the Mets, you like the Jets, you like the Islanders. What a bizarre sort of split. Even though growing up in New York, that was my split. I was Yankees, Rangers, Giants, Knicks. Maybe that's a thing. So you're a Mets fan. Let's say you're a Jets fan. You're both. You're watching the Mets. They have to play a doubleheader today. You're watching the Jets and you're saying, oh my God. You don't have to be the negative Nelly that is Stu Gotts to watch the Jets game and see that Aaron Rodgers, for the first time in his career, did not have a touchdown at home when he played the whole game. They lost 10-9 to the Denver Broncos, and I saw Denver play a preseason game. They stink. Now, of course, I only saw Knicks play for probably a quarter, and I don't think anyone on the defense played for either the Packers or the Broncos, but I digress. If you watch that game, I don't think that good teams are impacted by rain. Yeah, it stinks. You're cold. You got to adjust. You had a missed field goal to lose it for the Jets, but you're just watching Rodgers, who every time he's down, you're like, oh my God, he's limping. Wait a minute. He's 40 years old. He's over 40. Are you really counting on Aaron Rodgers and all of his distractions and insanity to get you to the playoffs? Do you look at Robert Saleh, the coach of the Jets, and say, he and Doug Peterson probably should get fired? Is that what you say? Do you say that they had over a week to prep for the lowly Denver Broncos and they look like they were on 2 days rest? Do you look at the fact that the team they played had a quarterback named Bo Nix who threw for 60 yards? That's not a misprint. You don't need to unclog your ears, pull out the extra wax. There's a quarterback that threw for 60 yards and won a game. If I am the New York Jets, I'm thinking to myself, we're not going to win with Aaron Rodgers, are we? We have absolutely blown our chance. He's too old, too immobile. We don't have enough pieces. We can't count on him. Let's hold our breath and see if he can last. Don't I have a wait to see, Coca? I can't hear you or see you right now, which normally I can do both. But don't we have a wait to see that Rodgers won't make it a full season, that he'll only start 13 games? The way he looked yesterday, I'm liking that wait to see more and more. All right, let's see if we can get Coca back in my ear, and let's take a break. And when we come back, I watched the new Apple TV movie with Clooney and Pitt. I can't wait to review it. And I've got a few more things to mention that are happening as the baseball season comes to an end. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I'm looking forward to telling you about mine because it was something. Thank you for being with us live, 8 a.m. Eastern on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search Nothing Personal, hit subscribe. If you're listening to this, thank you. I'm going gray blazer, dark gray today, blue shirt, still able to rock shorts. It's not quite winter yet. Excited to be with you. DraftKings Network, 10 a.m. Well, now it's 10:25. So I watch a movie every day. I was super excited to watch George Clooney and Brad Pitt in a movie because they don't make bad movies. Something's got to work when they're in the movie just because they're fun to look at. They're snappy and they've got a great chemistry, just like Bogey and Bacall. It's called Wolves. Here's the concept. Imagine if you're Amy Ryan and you're committing a crime, or a crime happens around you, or it's not a crime and it's just death. And it looks like that's a naked Austin Abrams who's now dead. And you have to call somebody because you're told when you're famous that if you call somebody, everything disappears. Sort of like the cleaner, the wolf in Pulp Fiction. In comes George Clooney. I'm here to help you with the normal trite crap of, how'd you get my number? How do you know who I am? Who's this? George Clooney walks into a scene, puts on the rubber gloves, and all of a sudden there comes Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt says, what are you doing here? I'm the person who cleans. I'm cleaning this up. Meanwhile, the woman's like, I don't know who's doing it, but somebody do it. And it turns out that the guy who is dead isn't dead. And you know that from the damn trailer, because how can he be dead and still be in a car with Clooney and Pitt alive? Is it a Bernie situation? And then I realized that a pitcher is only as good as his offense. You can't win a game 0-0. George Clooney and Brad Pitt are only as good as the words on the page, and the words on this page stink. If you want to save an hour and 40 minutes of your life, here it goes. Do not watch Wolves. The reason it wasn't released in the theater is because it's bad. Now, did Apple make a mistake investing all this money in the movie? How could they know? Clooney and Pitt. Well, reading the script may help, but thanks for taking the swing. Wolves. Brutal. I was not able to watch as much content, though I did get a movie in on Saturday, which is shocking because it's 7 a.m. on Saturday. I started what became a 13-hour day. I think I mentioned this to you last week. Did I not mention on Friday's show? Coca, I think I did. Can't remember. I walked around Manhattan to raise money for Parkinson's. For those Le Batard fans, if you remember last year when we ran 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, and then we had the video 1, 2, 3 Brett, you may remember that. Well, it turns out that a year later, Brett still has Parkinson's. There still is no cure, and therefore, there was another challenge that Brett wanted to do, which meant that I was going to be with him every step of the way. And I was. For 33.6 miles around Manhattan in rain, wind, cold, and despondency. Will Manso did it with us, and he covered it on his sports wrap last night. Here's the segment.
Thrill of the week, though. I just got back from New York this morning. I had the chance to take part in an amazing event with some really special people. Get this, we walked around the entire island of Manhattan from tip to tip, over 32 miles, all to raise money to find a cure for Parkinson's disease. This effort is led by Brett Parker, the gentleman you see right there, kind of in the middle, staring right at the camera.
Next to me.
Yeah, he has Parkinson's, and every year he raises money by creating some wild challenges. Brett has raised over $1 million over the years, including over $70,000 for this walk. A big kudos to Brett, everyone who took part. It was my pleasure to be there along with my wife. And more importantly as well, along with Brett, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, who do an incredible job. The strides they've made in raising awareness to find a cure for Parkinson's disease. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Will, for doing that. That's Will Manso. Very well known. You should know Will Manso if you don't. Although if you're not in Miami, you may not, but you should. Sideline also works the sideline for the Heat. Anyway, he and his wife joined us. There were 12 of us who started. There were 6 of us who finished. And just a shout out to Brett Parker. Let me give you a status update. 1, back hurts. 2, blisters on both feet. 3, swollen left ankle. 4, adrenaline to the point where I didn't sleep Saturday night at all after having completed it at about 8 p.m. Saturday night. Luckily, if you can't sleep after a challenge like that, after an ultra marathon, you get to watch content. Wait till you see what I review, because it was an outstanding middle of the night situation. 5, the chafing. Unbelievable. I did not relather. There were no water stations. There was no, I guess I could have stopped into a pharmacy, but I lathered up before. But in the rain, I should have done more. And there's 2 places you don't want to chafe if you are a man. I chafed in both. If you're a woman, there's a 3rd place you don't want to chafe. And we had some of that with some of the women who joined us, and that hurts too. If you know, you know. There's going to be a link, hopefully in the description of this show. If not, hopefully somewhere near my social media or Brett Parker's social media. We've raised a lot of money. It's frustrating to raise this amount of money and not be able to have a cure for Parkinson's, but we are not going to quit. There will continue to be challenges that we will do. And a shout out to Brett Parker. When you've got Parkinson's, it causes rigidity and tremors and all sorts of issues. He was taking medicine throughout the day to try to curb his symptoms, and he walked the 70,000 steps required to cover the 33 miles to walk around Manhattan in the crappiest weather it could be. Overwhelmingly inspiring. And I'm only complaining to you now because Brett's not here, and I don't think he's listening to the show. Because if you were, I wouldn't complain about a thing. And that's one of the things when you're doing that walk or that run or any of the crazy stuff we do. You can't complain about it because look at him with Parkinson's, for crying out loud. I'm completely healthy in every way other than mentally and physically old, but I should not say a word. But man, was I thinking it. And it causes the non-Parkinson's people doing the challenge to complain to each other, but never within earshot of Brett. So we'll like fall back 10 steps. And they'll say, oh, my God, this is the worst. And then we'll catch up to him and say, hey, man, we got this. Let's keep going. Trying to manufacture excitement and adrenaline for a challenge that's exhausting and ridiculous. And yet Brett Parker continues to go. Please find a cure for Parkinson's. Awkward transition alert. There's some managers who are going to have plenty of time to help find a cure for Parkinson's. And some managers are keeping their jobs who shouldn't. Normally, the day after the season is a day that managers get fired. What do they call it in football? It's Black Monday. No, that's the Amazon thing. That's obviously not what it is. There's something where all these coaches get fired after NFL. Well, we would have that as well, except it really doesn't happen in baseball as much because, as you saw, that some David Bell of the Reds get fired with 4 or 5 days in advance. We knew Skip Schumaker was getting let go by the Marlins. Don't believe what you read about the Marlins, please. The mutual parting of ways. It is absolute poppycock. Skip Schumaker did not want to stay in Miami, did not want to work under Peter Bendix, and Peter Bendix did not want to work with Skip Schumaker. There is a big divide of all analytics versus, hey, dude, what about feel? That problem. Guess who wins any issue between president of baseball ops and manager power struggle? Guess who wins? I'll give you 3, 2, 1. President of baseball operations. The investment made by Bruce Sherman into Peter Bendix to go straight analytics. No feel whatsoever. No ability to talk to anyone or to run an organization, but great analytics. It's going to lead to having your own manager. Don't believe any of the press that comes out that says the Marlins are starting their search right now. Horse hockey. It's been going on all season. They've known that they were moving on from Skip before game 1 of the season. Didn't matter if they won the World frickin' Series. I promise you. I was a little surprised that the Twins came out and said, we're bringing back Fire Rocco Baldelli. The Twins, in a historic nature, people use that word way too often without any basis in fact. I have no idea whether it's one of the great collapses. I assume with the Mets collapse, it can't be, because boy, did they have some unbelievable collapses in the last 15 years, 20 years. It's 20 years now, in the last 20 years. The Twins collapse was epic. They were 17 over 500 in the middle of August. They were 5 games up in the wild card, and they blew it. They went 12-25 in their last 37 games. By the way, I have a mortifying thing to say to you guys. Coca, I didn't even tell you about this. I need to search it. I'm going to search it. I think I still have the text. There was something that came up with the president of the Twins. His name is Dave St. Peter, who happens to just be a really good guy. And I said to him, good luck this October. I root for you every year and always will. This was on September 13th. It didn't even occur to me that they would blow it so badly. And he said, appreciate you. My guess is he doesn't appreciate that text anymore. I feel so badly. Here's the question. Do I do like a follow-up text? Like, Dave, man, God, that must have stunk. I think I got to give it a few days. But they came out and said, hey, we're bringing Rocco back. He's been there 6 years. He's doing fine. He's won 3 division titles. I don't see any reason why. And then Joe Polad, the chairman, came out and said, quote, I don't judge employees off of 6 crummy weeks. He's got 8 years of a resume, and I talk with Derek, that's the president of baseball ops, daily, so I know what he's doing. He's the right guy. God, that sounds incredibly rational. No emotion whatsoever. Can't be. Can it? Well, certainly looks that way. So Rocco's staying in Minnesota. The White Sox have an opening. Do they have an opening? They've got Grady Sizemore. I'm trying to decide if the Chicago White Sox, who broke the record, by the way, they lost 121 games this year. They ended up playing well in the last week to only lose 121, but no one will remember that. It's like the Marlins ended the season winning 4 games in a row. Big whoop. They lost 100. I lost 101 time in 2013. I think, Coca, our technical difficulties are still there, but I think in 2013, we also went 62 and 100, which is what the Marlins did. And I'll tell you that no one remembers whether we won or lost the last game or won the last 2, whatever we did. History just says you lost 100 games. Very, very bad. So the White Sox lose 121. Their season comes to an end. They've got an interim manager because Grady Sizemore, I love the guy, but it's not like he helped the White Sox too much. And we've been waiting to see what Jerry Reinsdorf would do. And boy, did he do something yesterday, Coca. He wrote he didn't write it. Who am I kidding? He wrote the longest letter to White Sox fans. And I need to go through it with you because it is staggering. We talk a lot about being tone deaf when owners talk, some players talk. Before anything is released by a team, there are so many checks that happen. Your PR department, your marketing department, the owner's own PR guy, the crisis PR guy, the baseball side. There's so many different people who look at it purposefully. Some people are looking for only typos. Some are looking for content. Some are looking for promise. Some are looking for the ability to sell off a communication by the owner. How can we use this in sales or marketing? Jerry Reinsdorf. 2 White Sox fans. By all measures, our on-field performance this season was a failure. As the leader of this organization, that is my ultimate responsibility. There are no excuses. Okay? What is the point of the letter? Tell me what you want us to get from this letter. So listen to the 2 takeaways that Reinsdorf covered in this letter. Staggering. He talked about the fact that the most important decision in the coming months is to evaluate and identify a new manager and leadership voice for this organization. I'm sure that feels really good to Grady Sizemore, but that's the most important decision in the coming months. Okay? Is that the most important decision? How come in the letter he talked about how time is needed and we're not going to see the fruits of all this amazing labor that's happening because things can take time? He said when named the general manager in 23, Chris Getz and his staff immediately began conducting a top-to-bottom evaluation of our existing operations. Really, Jerry? Is that true? Do you remember when you hired Chris Getz? You said the reason you promoted him internally is that he would be able to do everything faster because he knew everything with the organization? So why are you writing now? How did this pass all the editors? The wording of he began upon being hired. The point of his hire, because he wasn't qualified, but the point of his being hired is that he didn't have to begin at that moment. If you bring in someone from the outside, they've got to start that moment. But if you hire someone from the inside, the theory is they've been doing that from the beginning. And they went to you as the owner and said, listen, I would make the following 20 changes day one because Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn have lost it. You got to fire them and promote me, and we will not wait 1 day, 10 days, or 3 months, or a year. We're ready right now. I've been here. It makes no sense to me. Does Reinsdorf think that we're not going to remember what he said when Getz was hired? In the letter, you're saying he just began? No, not accurate. Don't write it that way. Be consistent. And by the way, when you're explaining a 121 loss season, here's what else your fan base doesn't give a crap about. And I'm quoting, the overall health of our organization is improving. Our minor league rankings show this growth. The Class AA Birmingham Barons, made famous for having Michael Jordan on the team once upon a time, won the Southern League title, while Class A Kannapolis reached the finals of the Carolina League. And our organization has built an impressive future pool of very talented prospects. Who cares? I liked getting the rings, and I've got a bunch of rings from minor league titles. I don't yuck on minor league owners, minor league players, minor league wins. I think it's outstanding. There's one group of people who don't care about minor league championships or minor league victories. Those are your season ticket holders. Those are the fans of your big league team. And we do all sorts of things to try to get you to care. We'll do down on the farm segments on the Jumbotron. We'll try to do things on the TV network where we're promoting the young players so you recognize them. MLB will do things like minor league spring training games and major league parks during a major league game all at once so we can grow the spectacle of minor league baseball, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is when you've had a good year or you've had a bad year, under all scenarios, you don't say, but we like our minor leagues. I love that. Teams do it all the time. Derek Jeter was famous for this before he got fired. Hey, man, we took over an organization who had a bad minor league system. We've rebuilt it. Way to go, Derek. Good job. I'm laughing because it doesn't matter. Hey, we got a championship in the minor leagues. All right, we're not going to fire our GM and manager now. We're cooking with gas. It's just funny. The letter from Reinsdorf ended with, above everything else, I'm a fan. Yikes. You know how you know when your owner's not a fan? Guess. What would be the number one correlation? What would be the difference between Steve Cohen fan and Jerry Reinsdorf fan? And I am not telling you that Jerry Reinsdorf did it wrong. No, I'm not. Steve Cohen's a fan willing to lose money year after year. sign players, have payrolls that do not match revenues by any stretch. The problem is when you say you're a fan, and we had this issue with our owner, it's hard to say what a big fan you are when you let players go, when your payroll's low and you're not doing well and you don't dip into free agency and you don't try to buy your way out, which we tried and doesn't work necessarily. There are no shortcuts. But focusing on the whole fan thing, it's tough. It's tough to do. And then the letter ended with, we recognize on a daily basis that it is our responsibility to earn your trust, attention, time, and support. We vow to take that approach daily as we put the work in this offseason to be better. We owe it to each and every one of you. Jerry, you need a better ghostwriter because I know you didn't pen this yourself. What are the takeaways? How about the takeaways? We will never be this bad again. We have great giveaways. We love the core. We're going to get ourselves a great manager. So good. Don't worry. Hey, Coca. Don't worry. Chris Getz is on the case. Nothing personal pick of the day. Friday night was, I think, the one game the White Sox did not win. The White Sox lost to the Tigers. We had the White Sox plus 140. That was Garrett Roche's final start. I wonder if part of being a fan of the White Sox is taking your best player and trading him, because that's the smartest thing for a baseball operations department to do, because you are years away from being good and you need to start over because this core of players is bad. It is so hard to trade your most marketable best guy, but in theory, they tried to do it already. What's exactly changed from the trade deadline to now? I can't think of one thing. But Crochet lost. Did you see Joe Burrow yesterday? We had the Bengals giving 4.5. We avoided the Panthers' backdoor cover. It was very cute to see Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Bryce Young holding the iPad, talking to Andy Dalton, who had this grizzled, I'm the backup, but I'm so cool because I'm playing and we're winning vibe on the bench. Oh, I'm still a good teammate. This is your job, Bryce. I'm just keeping the seat warm. Well, the Panthers ended up losing. The Bengals covered. That put us at 1-1 at 131 and 136. 2 Monday night games again tonight. It's not a doubleheader. There is a doubleheader, but it's in baseball. The 2 Monday night games. Let's talk Titans-Dolphins. The Dolphins are giving 2.5 to the Titans at home. For the 92.9% of you not in Miami or Florida, South Florida, I think. Who's the starting quarterback for the Dolphins? Quickly. Got it? Ryan Fitzpatrick. Nope. Good guess. That's a good guess, whoever guessed that. He played for every single team in the division, I think, twice. Who's the starting quarterback for the Titans? Ryan Tannehill. No, not him. Will Lee Jeans. We're taking the Titans plus 2.5. Here's the thing with the Dolphins, even though they're at home. Even with Tua, they were fine. There's something about that team. And by the way, when is it time for people to call Stephen Ross the worst owner in Miami? Where's the Super Bowl? At least we had a World Series with all the terrible things we did. But you got a World Series. Stephen Ross hasn't won a playoff game. Forget a Super Bowl. We're taking the Titans plus 2.5 at the Dolphins. Now let's go to MLB's doubleheader. The Braves are minus 162 with Schwallenbach over McGill. We're taking the Braves in game 1. There's no line in game 2 because it's not Severino against Sale. It's either Severino against God knows who with the Braves or Sale against God knows who with the Mets. If you have a way to bet the split, bet the split. The Braves will clinch a playoff spot in game 1. I can't wait to watch game 2 and thank my lucky stars I'm not Derek Hall, although I love Derek. But if you're the Diamondbacks, it's just bad. You're rooting for a sweep, and it's just going to be so hard to come by. But for picks of the day, we'll do the Braves in game 1. I wish I could get online and tell you to do the Mets in game 2, because the split's going to happen. Tomorrow, we will preview all of the playoff series that start tomorrow. We'll review my September predictions. This is the last night without playoff baseball. It's just business. Good luck, Mets fans. This is nothing personal.